What's up, guys? Back again this week. New videos every Friday. So we've done a couple deadlift focused videos for you guys. This week I want to kind of change things up and go over some squat stuff that I've been going over with clients these last few weeks. So we're going to do a few videos on this. We're going to break this up. Like I said, we're going to break this up into a few videos. That way we can be really detailed for you guys on this. So today we're going to talk about setting up and unracking the bar for a squat. So this is something that I see done poorly quite a bit, and it's not something that gets a lot of attention most of the time, right? It's a lot of people, develop bad habits of unracking the bar differently throughout training sessions, throughout training cycles, whatever. So we're gonna go over just a really simple checklist that you can follow to make sure that you're unracking that bar as efficiently as possible. We're gonna talk about rooting, we're gonna talk about setting our hips, our brace, we're gonna talk about head position, and we're gonna talk about setting tension in your upper back to make sure you're creating a good shelf for that bar when you go to unrack it. All right, guys, so first part of the video today, and arguably the most important part of the video, setting up under the bar and unracking the bar. So I'm gonna be talking about foot position, rooting, I'm gonna be talking about head position, and tension of setting tension in our upper back, as well as bracing. So a lot of issues that we see with heavy squats can be fixed with focusing on the setup itself, right? You fix the setup, you fix the lift, right? A lot of times technique issues are not caused by technique breakdown in the lift itself. It's caused by something that we're missing in the setup, right? Something to think about. So I'm talking about setting up under the bar. Two big things: foot position, head position. These are really easy to focus on. We want to be able to unrack the bar in a very comfortable position, right? We want it to be easy to pop and tension that bar out of the rack. Really good spot for us to be able to do that is just by having our feet set about shoulder width apart, right? See people that have their feet set really wide here, and then they have to walk out a squat. One, if I'm trying to pop that bar out of the rack, this isn't very comfortable and it's not very easy for me to do. And then I have to step back and then I have to reset tension and all that shit. So if I'm like here, really wide when I unrack the bar, and I want to come back here and try to get into my competition stance, not really easy. I'm going to be spending a lot of energy, especially if I have 700 plus pounds on my back. So feet shoulder width apart. I'm not going to go over the walkout part because that's later on in the video, but all you need to know for right now, feet shoulder width apart. Now, the head is another part that gets screwed up a lot. So a lot of times, we talked about this in the deadlift video last week, the position of our head is going to dictate the position of our torso. So if I'm looking down, right, my hips are back, my torso is leaning forward. Does that seem very optimal for unracking a squat? My head is down, my hips are back, and I try to unrack a squat like this? Probably not. So my goal is to stand tall and to be as upright as possible when I unrack this squat and when I'm actually getting ready to squat. So what I'm gonna do, right, feet are still shoulder width apart here. I'm gonna bring my head up. I'm not gonna look up, but I'm gonna bring my head up as if I'm talking to somebody and having a conversation like at eye level, right? So head straight forward, right? From here, I'm able to get my hips stacked directly underneath me a lot easier. My hips are under the bar here, which means that I literally just have to push straight up to get this bar out of the rack. Instead of, if I was here, my head was down, my hips are behind me, and now I'm doing a good morning to get that bar out of the rack. So which one sounds easier to you? Now, the last part that we're gonna go over, we're gonna talk about the bracing and setting the tension in the upper back, and the rooting, which is gonna tie all this together, which is how we're actually gonna tension that bar out of the rack. The next part of this unrack portion, we're gonna tie it all together. We're gonna talk about the rooting, what we're doing once we have our feet set, how we're gonna set our brace, and how we're gonna set our hips directly under the bar, and how we're gonna set that tension in our upper back so that way we can actually pop that bar out of the rack. Because if we're doing all these things correctly on this checklist and you go to actually to unrack that bar, if you don't have a lot of weight on the bar, you'll see, that's why I'm demonstrating this with 135 on the bar, 145, is just by creating that tension. It's kind of similar to pulling slack out of the bar with a deadlift. Is once you have that tension built up, the bar will just float out of the rack. So it's essentially the same concept as pulling slack. So what we're gonna do here, right? So I have my foot position, right? I have my head position. So what I'm gonna do to start focusing on getting this bar out of the rack, my intention of rooting, right? So what I want to focus on here with my feet is I want to focus on spreading my foot out as much as possible into the floor. And I'm going to think about driving that big toe into the floor as hard as I can. And I'm going to think about pushing my heels together. I'm not thinking about screwing my feet out or anything like that. I'm literally just thinking about taking my heels and pushing them together as hard as I can while maintaining that big toe pressure. This is going to turn on my glutes and my adductors. So when I do this, I'm going to feel my glutes turn on. And it's going to make it much easier for me to squeeze my glutes to pop that bar out of the rack. So it's the first part of this whole equation, right? Now, setting our brace on the unrack, right? I'm a very big believer in setting the brace on the unrack and then setting it again once you've walked the weight out, right? Because you need to act as if you're going to be squatting that weight right there, even if you're not in a mono lift, right? If you unrack the bar, you should have enough tension set as if you were going to squat right there. So, really easy way to set a brace, right? So we have our belly here. We want to breathe out as hard as we can. So I'm completely empty. I'm going to feel those ribs draw down. I'm going to pack those ribs down. That's going to set my torso in the position it needs to be in to get a brace going. Now I'm going to breathe in through my nose. I'm going to expand all the way around my torso here, lower back, side abs, my belly. I'm going to expand that as much as possible by breathing in. And then I'm going to contract down and push out as hard as I can to fill that expansion, right? And get everything solidified, right? There's your brace. So last part here, and this is going to be a little bit different from person to person. We're talking about setting our shelf in our upper back. So this is going to vary based off of your limitations at the shoulder in terms of shoulder mobility and how you cue setting the tension in your upper back. Some people do really well with pulling the bar down on their back as if they're doing like a lat pull down. For me, I'm a little bit limited here with my external rotation at the shoulder. So when I focus on pulling down on the bar, it honestly kind of dumps me forward here. So what I like to do to kind of help get myself some space up top, kind of make myself feel like I'm not so fucking compressed in the upper back, is I will actually cue spreading out on the bar. I'll spread the bar as hard as I can, just like with bench. I'm sure you probably heard that cue with bench before. So I'll spread out on the bar as hard as I can. Makes me feel like I'm getting wide up top. I can kind of feel my lats flaring as I do so. I feel a lot more stable. So if you're a guy like me, a little limited up top, you feel like pulling down on the bar kind of just dumps you forward, spread out on the bar. So now we're going to tie all those together, right? So under the bar, here I can already start setting that intention in my upper back by spreading out on the bar here. I have my feet set. Big exhale. Breathe in. Now I'm going to start pushing those heels together. My head's up. Squeeze the glutes. There you go. So we're able to combine everything there. The rooting, pushing the heels together, the bracing, exhaling hard, reinforcing that, setting the brace, head position, spreading out on the bar. We're able to hit everything in that checklist to ensure that we're unracking that bar and setting ourselves up to be in a strong position to walk out the weight and get ready to squat.